There are plenty of reasons why many of us avoid caves. Not only are caves incredibly dark, but they can also get unbelievably cramped. There's a lot of uncharted territory in cave exploration, and it triggers a sense of dread and discomfort in most people. With these discoveries, it seems like there are more reasons to avoid caves. Let's take a look at the most horrifying things discovered in caves from all around the world. From one of the biggest bat caves in the world to a toxic cave, here are the 15 scary things found in caves. Number 15. Largest single-species bat colony in the world. The island of Samil in the Philippines is an attractive vacation spot many tourists worldwide visit. Its mesmerizing beaches and stunning scenery make it one of the best places to visit for a memorable summer getaway. But for those who seek the thrill of the wild, an exciting experience also awaits. A trip to the Montfort Bat Sanctuary. If you're scared of bats, it might not be the greatest idea to go anywhere near this island. After all, it is home to the largest single bat colony in the entire world. The island obtained the Guinness World Record title for being home to around 2.3 million russet fruit bats. Yes, you heard that right, 2.3 million. It's impressive to see the bats all huddled together inside the cave. Most people would be horrified at the idea of seeing thousands, let alone millions of bats in the night sky. For many, these creatures are nothing but monsters. Now, I don't know about you, but I think russet bats are pretty cute. They do look like flying rodents, and even though it's hard to tell them apart from their blood-sucking relatives, these creatures mean no harm to humans. In fact, you might be more horrified to hear that there are pythons slithering inside this cave, waiting for injured or weak fruit bats to drop from the walls before consuming them. Before we go on, like this video, smash the subscribe button, and click the notification bell right now. Number 14. Nutty Putty. Alright, buckle up because you're about to hear one of the most terrifying cave stories of all time. If you're claustrophobic, this just might be your worst nightmare. The Nutty Putty is a small cave discovered by Dale Green and his friends in 1960. The group explored the cave, which was an incredibly harrowing feat. The cave passages were incredibly narrow and lined with clay, hence its name Nutty Putty. The discovery of the cave wasn't anything significant for Green, but little did he know their exploration would spark the interest of many adventurous individuals from around the globe. He didn't expect the disaster that would follow many years later either. The Nutty Putty Cave is located outside Salt Lake City, Utah in the United States. Individuals who want to reach the cave entrance need to climb Blowhole Hill. The cave's opening is still spacious, but there are some parts where people need to squeeze in their bodies just to fit. The cave has 3 incredibly tight passages. One is the Helmet Eater, the Scout Eater, and the Birth Canal. You would think their names are quite funny, but there is a reason why these passages are distinct from the others. From 1999 to 2004, there were 6 incidents of people getting stuck and trapped in different areas of the cave. All 6 individuals made it out alive, but the severity of the incidents made rescuers fear that the next one would be fatal. And just as many feared, a tragic accident happened inside the Nutty Putty Cave. From 2006 to 2009, the Nutty Putty Cave was closed to ensure no further accidents would occur. But in 2010, the cave reopened after an agreement with the Timpanogos Grotto. People made reservations online, and only one group was allowed to enter at a time. A month after the cave reopened, John Edward Jones and his family went to the cave to spelunk. It was a hobby of his, and ever since he was a kid, he joined his brother and father in exploring caves in Utah. John Edward descended into the Nutty Putty Cave at around 8 p.m. on November 24, 2009. The 26-year-old was joined by his brother, who was 3 years younger than him. The family wanted the cave expedition to be a memorable and exciting trip. It had been a while since the family went spelunking, which ultimately caused John's demise. He was 6 feet tall and 200 pounds. And after getting married, raising children, and being consumed by medical school for years, his hobby of exploring caves was lost. At some point during the exploration, John reached the Birth Canal, one of the 3 tightest passages in the cave. John wriggled his way into the narrow spot, but it was too late before he realized he was stuck. The more he tried to escape the tight spot, the worse his situation became. After what felt like hours, his younger brother found him and tried to pull him out by his calves. John became trapped 400 feet into the cave and 100 feet beneath the Earth's surface. All the rescuers could see sticking out were his running shoes. But John didn't lose hope. For an entire day, more than 100 rescuers tried to free John from the tight spot, but to no avail. John was positioned upside down, and his position wasn't working in his favor. His position required his body to continuously pump blood out of his brain, and a single mistake could cost his life. John was already secured with a pulley, but just when they were about to pull him up, one of the ropes failed. After 27 hours of continuous effort, John was pronounced dead due to cardiac arrest caused by his downward position. To this day, John's body still remains in the exact same position he died in, and the Nutty Putty cave was closed for good. Number 13. Alien skulls. In the past years, dozens of strange alien-like skulls have been unearthed in crypts and caverns all across Europe. Although it's somewhat common to discover deformed skulls in Asia and America, it's quite rare for strangely shaped skulls to be discovered in Europe. But this discovery revealed some unknown truths about the people who lived on the continent more than 1,000 years ago. Some believe that the skulls proved the existence of aliens, but experts believe otherwise. Historians believe that during the 5th century AD, people in Central Europe engaged in a strange practice. Many saw the need to bind their skulls to artificially alter their shape. After binding their skulls at a young age, their heads would grow more elongated and narrower. Their skulls were so elongated that it was easy to mistake them for aliens. Skull binding is a practice that can be traced back to thousands of years ago. It seemed like even during the reign of the Roman Empire, people shared this practice all across the world. It's a pretty weird thing to do, but for people from thousands of years ago, having an elongated head was seen as attractive. Number 12. Bell Witch Cave. If you live in Tennessee, there's a chance that you've already heard about the Bell Witch Cave. The story goes that in the 1800s, a farmer named John Bell moved to Robertson County, Tennessee. He lived peacefully on his farm, but shortly after, John and his family began hearing strange noises like rattling chains and heavy knocking. It was said that John Bell was killed by the ghost haunting the area. To this day, many believe that a witch haunts the county, and paranormal activity is most noticeable in the Bell Witch Cave. For this reason, many people venture into the Bell Witch Cave hoping to have a horrifying experience by the time they get out. Some people dared to stay overnight in the cavern, and they all survived the night. However, many of them had terrifying experiences to share afterward. Aside from ghosts, it seems like deadly insects also inhabit the cave, including spiders, making it even scarier. Although many believe that the tales about the Bell Witch Cave are nothing but baseless rumors, many believe that the Bell Witch Cave is genuinely haunted. Number 11. Screaming mummies. In Guanajuato, Mexico, are several of the most horrifying mummies you'll ever see, the screaming mummies. At the Museo de los Momias are numerous slack-jawed mummies that look like they died from terror. In 1911, these corpses, also known as the mummies of Guanajuato, were interred in a cavern running underneath the city cemetery. Many of them were placed standing or leaning against the walls. In the 1850s, public cemeteries around the area required the family of the deceased to pay a yearly burial tax to keep their loved ones interred on their property. In 1865, cemetery officials decided to remove the bodies of people whose families couldn't pay the taxes or fees. Those who didn't have living families were removed as well. When the bodies were removed, workers expected to see nothing but bones. To their surprise, they discovered the well-preserved mummies. All of the mummies were preserved naturally by the environment. However, the natural preservation made the mummies look like they were eternally anguished. In time, however, the most horrifying-looking mummies were taken by people and displayed. Many houses of horrors featuring the screaming mummies popped up around the area. Several tourists claimed they heard strange noises while looking at the mummies, while some believed they were cursed. Guanajuato was added to the UNESCO World Heritage List in 1988 and remains on the list to this day. Number 10. Philippines fire mummies. Since we're already on the topic of mummies, let's head over to the Timbuk Caves in the Philippines, where the fire mummies are interred. Unlike the mummies in Egypt wrapped in linen or the naturally preserved corpses in Mexico, the fire mummies were preserved long before they died. These mummies can be found in the Timbuk Caves, where several of them are preserved in a sitting position, hugging their knees close to their bodies. Experts believe that the mummies were created by the Iloilo people, who lived in the area between 1200 and 1500 CE. In the last weeks of their life, the dying person would drink a very salty concoction. This is already an early step of the mummification process. When the person dies, the body would be washed and set over a fire in a sitting position. Tobacco smoke would also be blown into the body of the deceased to ensure their organs would be preserved. Finally, herbs are rubbed all over the deceased before interring them in rock shelters and natural caves around the area. Needless to say, when Westerners discovered the fire mummies in the early 20th century, many of them were quite horrified. However, after getting over their initial surprise, many of them desired to steal the preserved bodies to sell or to have them displayed in their homes. Looting continued, and many of the fire mummies, also known as the Kabayan mummies, were lost. Today, there are officially between 50 to 80 mummies scattered all over Benguet, Philippines, but their exact locations are kept confidential for fear that people will loot and vandalize the caves. Number 9. Iranian salt mummies. In the Cherabad salt mine in Iran, several ancient mummies have been uncovered. and they're honestly among the most horrifying mummies in the world, not only because of their appearance, but also because of their tragic backstories. In 1993, the first salt mummy was discovered by workers in the local salt mine. The mummy had a long white beard, iron knives, and a single gold earring. Experts believe the mummy dates to 300 AD. Several years later, in 2004, another mummy was discovered, and it was followed by the discovery of another mummy a year later. The sixth salt mummy was discovered recently, and the preservation of the mummy's body is astounding. His hair, bones, and internal organs remained intact. This is thanks to the high salinity of the cave. In fact, one of the salt men was so incredibly well preserved that his boots even remained intact, so much so that scientists could still see his toes through radiographic imaging. Upon examining the boots, they discovered the toes of the man curled tightly towards the tip, suggesting he was wearing uncomfortable footwear while working. Scientists believe that the salt men discovered in the caves were obtaining salt when they became trapped in the cavern. After all, many of the mummies discovered showed signs of trauma, indicating that the salt men were crushed inside the cave. It's highly likely that all of them were miners who met their untimely deaths while working inside the mines. Number 8. The Cannibals of the Goff's Cave. In 2011, a macabre collection was discovered at Goff's Cave in Cheddar Gorge, southwest England. Archaeologists stumbled upon a cave that was most likely inhabited by cannibals around 14,000 years ago, after the last ice age. Several bones were discovered in the area, many showing signs of butchery. It was clear that the victims were butchered by fellow humans in order to be eaten. When they were dead, their bones were cleaned and carved into cups. Quite gruesome, huh? Number 7. Crystal Sepulchre Cave. In a cave in the Tapir Mountain Nature Reserve are several skeletons. Many of them are lying with their limbs spread, befitting their tragic fates. The skeletons belong to people who were sacrificed by the Maya in order to appease their gods more than 1,000 years ago. The youngest of the skeletons belonged to a 1-year-old child, and the oldest was around 45 years old. Almost all of the victims inside the cave died of blunt force trauma, indicating that many of them didn't lead happy lives. Number 6. Lost Girl. Imagine you're exploring a cave, and you suddenly hear what you think is the sound of a young girl crying. You try to find the source of the sound, and after looking around, you do see a young girl crying all alone in the middle of the cave. That's precisely what happened when an explorer named Josh ventured into the Ape Cave in Mount St. Helens in the United States. They were far inside the cave when they began hearing the sound of a child crying. One decided to take a step back and turn around, but curiosity got the best of them. Luckily, they decided to walk deeper inside. As they walked further into the cave, and as the entrance became narrower, the crying noise became louder. They found a young girl in the middle of the cave who didn't speak English. Fortunately, they coaxed the girl into following them outside the cave, where her parents frantically looked for her. Number 5. Moaning Cavern. The Moaning Cavern in Vallecito, California is arguably one of the scariest caves in the world, not because of its daunting terrain, but because of the ghosts that allegedly haunt the area. The Moaning Cavern is popular for various activities in the area, from ziplining and gem digging to spelunking. What's more, the caverns are also famous because of the many artifacts discovered in the area. In the 1840s, gold miners discovered the Moaning Caverns, and inside, they stumbled upon arrowheads and other artifacts, including a necklace that's about 8,000 years old. Human bones were also discovered in the area. Now you're probably wondering how the cave obtained its name in the first place. You see, when the first visitors of the cave stepped foot in the area, they kept hearing wailing and moaning sounds, although we now know the unnerving sounds were caused by the wind. Number 4. The Haunted Mammoth Cave. Mammoth Cave is the most extensively known cave system in the world. Many people from all around the world visit Mammoth Cave National Park. However, aside from its natural beauty, it's also well known for paranormal activity. There are more than 150 documented paranormal events around the cave. Not only are the numbers significant, but the witnesses are also credible people, even researchers and scientists. Certainly, scientists have no reason to lie about seeing a ghost, right? For this reason, the Mammoth Cave is also known as the most haunted natural wonder in the world. In 1839, the cave was purchased by Dr. John Croghan for $10,000. For that price, the cave also came with several enslaved people, including a cave guide named Stephen Bishop. Many were delighted by the tours offered by Stephen, but Croghan had a different plan. For some strange reason, he wanted to convert the cave into a hospital. The doctor built 11 huts inside the cavern, and initially 15 patients were transferred to the cavern. It was the beginning of a disaster. Shortly after, the condition of the patients worsened, and Dr. Croghan himself died of tuberculosis. Many of the slave guides died years later. People believe that to this day, they still return to the cave as spirits to see how things are. One of the new guides claimed to have seen a family of African Americans in a group he was guiding once. However, after finishing the tour, the family mysteriously disappeared. There was also no record of the family taking the cave tour. If you want to get spooked, there are countless stories on the internet about the Mammoth Cave. Number 3. Hyena Cave. In 2021, a team of scientists exploring a lava tube known as Jirsan in northwest Saudi Arabia stumbled upon an astonishing discovery. At the heart of the cavern were tens of thousands of bones. Many of the bones were in surprisingly good condition, despite the fact that their origin can be traced back to thousands of years ago. The massive horrific pile included the remains of more than 40 animal species, including horses, foxes, camels, gazelles, hyenas, and sheep. In fact, several human bones were also discovered in the area. Initially, scientists didn't know what to make of the discovery. Who was responsible for the large animal bone pile in the area? Did highly carnivorous archaic humans live around the area in the past and treat the cave as their trash pile? It turned out that the culprits were quite unexpected. Scientists claim the bones were dragged into the cave by a four-legged scavenger, a hyena. Striped hyenas are scavengers, but they're also capable of hunting in packs. There might not be any hyenas around the area today, but a long time ago, these animals thrived in the area. Scientists are sure that hyenas were indeed the animals responsible for the bone pile after discovering human craniums in the area. Striped hyenas are known for digging up human graves and consuming the flesh of the corpse, eating everything except for the skull cap. Sounds pretty brutal, right? Number 2. Lost tomb filled with ancient skeletons. No one expected what this drone discovered. An amateur archaeologist decided to fly a drone and explore the holiday island of Gran Canaria. Little did he know that he would find something groundbreaking. After flying near some of the rock formations, something caught his eye inside one of the cave systems. He flew the drone closer to the cavern's opening and realized he had found something significant. Inside one of the cave systems on the island of Gran Canaria were the remains of many native people from the Guanche Society. After exploring the cave, about 62 adult skeletons were discovered, along with 10 newborns. The skeletons were immediately analyzed, and experts concluded that the remains date back to between 800 and 1000 AD. The Guanche people are considered the original inhabitants of the Canary Islands. In the past, these people most likely traveled from North Africa before settling on the island. When Spanish settlers arrived on the island, they were peacefully and ethically absorbed. The discovery shed light on pre-Hispanic burials on the island. Burial shrouds made from vegetable fibers and animal skins were discovered inside the cavern. It wasn't the first Guanche burial discovered on the island, but archaeologists didn't expect its location. To reach the cavern's opening, archaeologists needed to climb up a cliff before traveling down about 75 feet just to reach the tomb. The discovery proved that pre-Hispanic burials were similar across the island. Archaeologists also hoped to learn more about the lost Guanche society by examining the burials. Number 1. Movila Cave. Imagine a place with no light and little oxygen. A dark and unknown place that's closed off from the rest of the world. It's hard to imagine that such a place exists, but the Movila Cave is precisely those things and more. Located in the southeastern region of Romania, not too far from the Black Sea, is the strange cavern of Movila. The sun's rays don't reach the inside of the cave, and it's been sealed off for millions of years from the outside world. The air inside the cave is considered poisonous and toxic. It's a place where no human would dare stay for long. Surely no living creature lives inside it, right? How would they even? And yet, despite the darkness permeating the cave and its toxic atmosphere, life still found a way to flourish in the dangerous cavern. About 5.5 million years ago, when our human ancestors still walked on our planet, several species ventured into the dark cave of Movila. At some point, the cave was shut by a limestone slab, and the cavern remained sealed for millions of years. It wasn't until 1986 that the cave was discovered by workers in communist Romania. The group was trying to find a place to construct a power plant when they stumbled upon the sealed cave. After learning about the cavern, scientists immediately ventured into its interior. After a 65-foot descent, they discovered a time capsule that was kept shut for more than 5 million years. For some strange reason, the small toxic cave became the home of 48 species, 33 of which didn't exist anywhere else on Earth. Just as unique as their habitat, the creatures crawling in the dark crevices of Movila didn't have eyes. After all, they had no use for it. Many of them were nearly translucent, with long antennas to help them navigate in the dark. At the heart of the cavern was a soup of bacteria and water concentrated with sulfide. All the creatures inside the cave relied on a frothy layer of bacteria, known as autotrophs, to get nutrients inside their bodies. After all, there wasn't any other food source inside the cave. If the monstrous creatures aren't enough of a scare for you, remember that the Movila cave is toxic. Today, scientists venture far into the cave to gather data, but they do so with the help of breathing tanks. Without these breathing apparatuses, their bodies would collapse. The farther you venture into the cave, the harder it is to breathe. Aside from the occasional scientific exploration inside the cave, it might be a long time before we're fully able to discover everything there is to learn about the Movila cave. Did you get spooked by any of these discoveries? Let me know your thoughts in the comments down below. Also, check out our other cool stuff showing up on the screen right now, and I'll see you in the next video. Take care, everybody.